Hello and welcome. Today I am going to be talking about episode 2 of The Last of Us, which premiered on Sunday. And similar to other videos I have done about TV show premieres, I will first go through an episode recap and then through a discussion about the episode. So with that, sit back, relax, and let's get started. This week's episode of The Last of Us was all about the generational struggle for survival. In Infected, Joel and Tess continue on their mission to the State House to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies, only to discover that everything went south even before they set foot inside the building. The episode also had the tragic demise of Tess and formally introduced us to the Clickers in a superb sequence very similar to the one in the game. One of its main themes, though, is legacy, or what we do to build a better world for those who will come after us, something that is directly connected to Tess's final words to Joel. As the trio navigates the ruins of Boston on their way to their destination, they quickly develop their own group dynamics. Tess is more welcoming to Ellie's presence, even if she's doubtful of whom the girl says she is at first, and takes an almost motherly approach towards her. She gives Ellie the ground rules of how this new world works, and when her time finally comes, Tess is completely invested in the idea of saving Ellie, but not solely for the girl. Joel on the other hand, is still very much traumatized by the loss of his daughter Sarah 20 years earlier. So he takes a more distant and doubtful approach, even if he is still protective. Joel, Tess, and Ellie's interactions throughout the episode show that, despite currently sharing the same physical space, the adults spent most of their lives living in a completely different world than the teenager. Something that would already be the rule in a seemingly normal world, but on a post-apocalyptic one, everything is dialed up to 11, making the differences even more evident. It's not just about the age gap anymore, but the very nature of day-to-day life and how people get by. An apocalypse will inevitably do that, but one can't help but ponder the kind of world a girl like Ellie was born into. She is extremely intelligent, curious, sharp, and quick-minded, and had she been never bitten to find she is immune, her future would likely be a very bleak one, completely stuck behind the walls of Boston's quarantine zone. Her joy just to be outside is heartbreaking because she can see so much beauty in a terrible world. She grew up in a world where everything happened inside a walled perimeter, so she has never known how wide the outside really is. She even says that the view of a post-apocalyptic Boston is beautiful when it's pretty terrible. More than appreciating zombie-covered views, that's also a chance for Ellie to see firsthand a world that she hears about in school and reads about in books, but that doesn't really exist anymore. The image of a moss-covered restaurant, still with glasses on the tables, is like time stopped just so the girl could see how things were. A hotel lobby is just as wondrous for her, despite being the ideal hiding place and cover for clickers or bad people. Despite Ellie being the center of attention, the main character in Infected is certainly Tess. The very name of the episode references the fact that she really gets infected, and that's extremely important for how things are about to go down. We don't know what Tess did before the outbreak, but when The Last of Us takes place, she is a smuggler with Joel. In the first episode, we see her dealing with suppliers, buyers, Fedra, the Fireflies, and she's never really considered anything other than her own benefit, and maybe Joel's as well. But meeting Ellie changes everything for her. We understand that the Tess we met is but a hopeless shadow of who she can be. Her being open to Ellie is a consequence of the girl's potential for good, not just for herself, but for the world. The fact that Tess gets bitten doesn't change her feeling towards Ellie, but rather makes it stronger, as now she's considering something else: legacy. Understanding that she is close to becoming infected helps her put things into perspective, seeing that she didn't really do anything to leave the world a better place than she found it. Sure, that would be difficult because there was a literal apocalypse in her lifetime, but she could have tried to make things at least a little better, but didn't. Her generation, which was already past its up-and-coming status when the outbreak happened, just gave up. Fedra took over once the outbreak turned into a permanent situation, and they didn't try to make things right. Being infected, Joel is Tess's only shot at making a real difference and making the world a little better for the people who will live in it in the future. She needed to witness a miracle and to be bitten to get her faith back, but Joel is different. He has already lost everything, so she appeals to him and tries to push some perspective into his head. This is your chance. You get her there, you keep her alive, and you set everything right. All the stuff we did. She's not referring to the smuggling and breaking the law living under Fedra, but to letting the world collapse and not fighting back against its end. Save who you can save. So now I am going to move into the episode discussion. I love the way they've tweaked the infected. The absolute tension whenever someone steps on something or kills one is unreal. The clickers look and sound absolutely spot on. What an amazing sequence in the museum. Really loved the episode. The intro caught me off guard, and it was a very nice surprise. I thought it went by really quickly. Great at setting things up, and for a lot of it, you felt their uneasiness, which created a very tense and suspenseful atmosphere. I was on the edge of my seat throughout the entire museum sequence. It was very well done. The infected running past Tess really telegraphed they don't care because she's infected, but wow, the end of that scene makes me want to yak. Props to the show writers. I hate it so much. Bomb the city and everyone in it. That cold open was absolutely brutal. The cold opens have been one of my favorite parts of this show. Some cool things to point out. The creaking door when they left the initial room was a clicker sound, and there were a lot of fake outs with creaking and clicking building to the clicker encounter, and it was masterfully done. So many gameplay callbacks. Lifting Tess up, bandaging themselves, unpacking their bags. There was a stuffed giraffe in the debris. The clicker encounter, executed perfectly and so scary. The change to making the cordyceps an entire network is freaky. Loved that was who surrounded Tess compared to the soldiers in the game. Most revolting kiss in TV history. Neil Druckmann directed this episode, so of course we're gonna get plenty of shout outs to the game. Ellie can't swim, crossing planks, using cloth and tape to bandage up, help me up to lift a character over a ledge, stealth to avoid clickers, overturned cabinets to block doors, and fire killing clickers. Don't forget, get through a door and the previous room collapses for no backtracking if you missed a collectible. I love how they built up the clickers as rare, but incredibly dangerous. Tess and Joel were terrified when they saw that body that was shredded because it could only be one thing. Imagine everyone's surprise like a year or so after Outbreak Day when those started showing up. That must have been terrifying. I also noticed they avoided Ellie's question about different types of infected to not freak her out. Loved how you could see after the clicker scene how Tess got more and more impatient and in a hurry, while Joel and Ellie just jogged along. Amazing lore with the they're all connected tidbit in the beginning to the scene before the bombing where they were all alerted and became the hungry mind hive that they are. I think it was a good call to have Ellie get bit again around the same time as Tess so Joel can see it and has more reason to trust Ellie's story and immunity. The opening scene of the trio where Ellie was in the light the entire time and Joel and Tess are in the shadows, but then as Tess is buying more into Ellie and what she can represent for the world, she goes closer and is placed exactly in the middle of Ellie and Joel, in the half light and half dark. The addition of the network that connects all of the infected is so good. It takes the extra danger and suspense from the spores and makes it more realistic for the show in that it is similar to how fungi actually work in real life. This, plus the tendrils coming out of their mouths, helps to make the infected feel even more unique and terrifying than traditional zombies. I did not expect Ellie to get bit a second time, but I think it's a brilliant move that will only enforce her survivor's guilt and feeling she has more of a duty to fulfill her destiny to help with the cure. Especially since this second bite happens around the time Tess dies, you can already see the guilt kicking in on her face in that final shot of the episode. First infected coming from a flower factory once again confirms the flower theory. And what the flower theory is in the first episode, they mention not making pancakes, which contains flour, and also Joel says he's on a diet, either Atkins or keto. Then later, Sarah is offered cookies by the neighbor, but refuses due to them not being her type, but are seen being fed to the grandma. People thought this might mean something, and now this episode mentions the infected working at a flour factory, which adds fuel to